When it comes to the TV show Black Rabbit, I'm going to be honest and say it was quite the watch. Firstly, I really loved how it opened as very non-linear, showing that there are a much hooking plot to desire as the show goes on. Not only that, but I really enjoyed how they introduced us to the key characters. That means Jake, Rosie, Tony and Wes. The main hooking thing for me was Jason Bateman in this show, as he seemed to be playing a different character from the characters he usually plays, and by that I mean he is known for playing the calm, composed, sensible type of character surrounded by chaotic and loose cannon type of characters. This is best represented in TV shows like Arrested Development and Ozark, and what I really enjoyed is he is playing one of those loose cannons, the chaotic type of character who can't help themselves but put himself and others in trouble. It's something I've never seen him do, and honestly he knocked it out of the park. He was fantastic at playing this type of role. We really do root for his character, that being of Vincent, as he puts himself into all these type of dodgy situations, all to pay off a huge debt to this nepotistic gangster's son. And it's really sad because you do root for him, but at the end of the day you just know he's going to lose. But not only that, but he's going to put himself into a far worse situation than he was before. But you just can't help but root and want him to succeed. The story itself gets way more hooking when he has to involve his brother into the world that he has put himself into, and then having to see both of them deal with this gangster's nepotism son and the demands they heavily want from them. Jake is also an interesting character. Whilst he portrays to be more of a saint in comparison to Vincent, that is far from the case. He's got quite a lot of dirty laundry on his list, and sad to say that as the show progresses, that dirty laundry piles up to the point that it's going to collapse and fall on Vincent. To me, this is one of the most surprising things about this show, is how much detail they add to the characters of Jake and Vincent, not only from their childhood but to how they came up and conceived the idea of Black Rabbit to their present day. And it's honestly surprising to see so much detail packed into a show like this, which is just a limited series, and so you do have to applaud the writers and the creators for adding this amount of detail in. Now, while the show isn't the most action-packed, it does have a way of capturing the audience. For example, there's plenty of chase sequences scattered throughout, and honestly they are very tense and hooking, and you're on the edge of your seat as you see these characters nearly getting caught but somehow getting out. But then also there's a lot of hidden truths between characters and their past being revealed, which is also hooking. And then just the idea of miscommunication, and because of that we're seeing characters getting put into more darker situations, and because of that we're seeing other characters getting involved, and it just gets so chaotic, and it's really hooking to see, at least for an audience member like myself. And then lastly, the soundtrack was fantastic to see, as we're seeing these songs really representing the characters, that at least in their emotional state or the situation they are, and it really captures and somewhat puts us, the audience, into their shoes at that particular moment. I have to commend them on this, as it's not something every show does, at least with the music, and this is one of the exceptions. It's quite honestly a cool thing to see. When it comes to the ending, I will say I was enthralled. Not only as we're seeing characters having to face death, escaping it, getting into all type of situations, chase sequences, but also seeing some home truths being dropped, and then the characters having to deal with the fact of that info being displayed onto them. And when it comes to the actual end of the show, it's very sad to see, as Jake loses not only his brother, but he loses the entire future that he has been planning up towards from the start of the series. But at the same time, it's something you can foresee. This is his chickens coming home to roost, as he has been somewhat betraying those he claimed to care so dearly about from the very beginning of this show. What I really enjoyed, though, a little sprinkle of happiness for this show, is that he is not miserable by the circumstances that have befallen onto him, as we see he's on the train to his new job, and he sees one of his former co-workers on a newspaper, and instead of having a bitter look on his face, he smiles. It's nice to see that he has no bitterness towards those who did betray him, as he probably has some regrets himself, and that's quite nice to see that he is content at the end of the day. Now, when it comes to critiques, genuinely I have none. It's very hard to think of anything to really go against this show. If I had to, my only gripe would be not seeing the main two characters having a go at these pathetic excuses of gangsters. It's really sad to see them being so cowardly towards them, as they were very obnoxious, but also they were really terrible at being gangsters, and I just really wanted to see one of them punch them every now and then, but it wouldn't have made sense if I'm being genuinely honest. Overall, I will say this was a really hooking show. I will say a bit slow at the start, but it definitely picked up after episode 3. I think the performances by Jason Bateman and Jude Law were outstanding, and I think they had a really hooking story throughout, and they did a great attention to detail from characters. With all that being said, is this good? I'm going to be honest and say it was great. Rating wise, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. Now, when it comes to would I rewatch it, the answer is yes. Whilst definitely not now at the moment, I could see myself going back to it in 2 to 3 years' time. Now, when it comes to recommendations, the first thing that popped into my mind when watching this was how similar the relationship between Jake and Vincent is with Ray Donovan and his relationship with his father, and to a lesser extent his brothers. But that is one similarity. The main difference between the characters of Jake and Vincent and Ray and Mickey is that Ray and Mickey are not cowardly in any shape and form, whilst Jake and Vincent are. My other recommendation is seeing Jason Bateman play this type of character is very hooking, very cool to see. But if you want to see him play the more calm, sophisticated, sensible character, then no better example of him executing that type of role is in Ozark. He's got so much on his plate. There's so much pressure on him, and yet he is doing it with ease. We see him just slowly but surely succeeding, but you know that there's so much pressure on his back. He does a fantastic job of displaying that in the show. And when it comes to Jude Law, I'm not particularly knowledgeable about his career, but one thing I do love is a film he appeared in called Love, Honor and Obey. He is one of the main stars, and whilst I do think he did an excellent job, Ray Winston and Johnny Lee Miller definitely steal the show. What's great about this film is it came at a time when the gangster British film series, that type of films, was kind of fading away, and I'd say this is one of the last gems before the franchise, or genre even, kind of dissipated. Those are my recommendations. This has been my review for the TV show Black Rabbit. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed, please like and subscribe, but most importantly, thank you and have a nice day.